Hello, this is Module 1. Welcome to the course. This module is going to establish whether your current home is right for you now and for your future needs. Grab a pen and a paper and let's take some notes. I want you really thinking about your actual home as we go through this. First, I want to start with a story. This is me as a young kid, and then this is me now, well, a few years back. But first, let's start with my grandfather. This is my grandma and grandpa. They were actually married, but divorced when I think before I was born. So they lived separate in their aging years. And my grandfather had a home that he loved, but he didn't have a ton of other retirement assets. So he had a really straightforward way of thinking. He didn't really explore any options. And he decided to sell his home when I was about 16. And instead of looking into any other options to stay in that home or maybe buy again, he just sold the house. He put all of the money he got from the house into his retirement account, and then he decided to rent. And he rented small apartments, somewhere upstairs, somewhere downstairs. And when they would raise the rent, he would just move. And it really was not a very stable retirement for him. He had money in the bank, but his living situation was constantly changing. Unfortunately, my grandfather really was very independent and he lived alone. He didn't want to live with anyone. And in a new apartment, he'd been there about 6 months. I don't know what he was doing. We all assume he was probably going to the bathroom in the middle of the night, but no one really knows. But he fell. And he was actually on the floor for 3 days before the neighbor called my uncle and said, the newspapers are piling up. I think you need to come check on your dad. And my uncle got the landlord. They opened the door up and found my grandfather on the floor. And he'd been there for 3 days. And he was alive, but he was severely dehydrated. He was barely responsive. And he actually had moss growing on his teeth from having been on the floor unmoving for that long. He had broken his neck and he was unable to move or get a call for help, anything at all. So, of course, rushed to the ER, and he was in and out of hospitals for the rest of his life. He was devastated by the ending of his life. I've never seen my grandfather get emotional, and he cried while he was in the hospital bed. And he had one of those halo devices around his head, and he was just miserable. He wanted to go. This was not the way that he saw the end of his life, and he really wasn't that old. He was only 78, but that fall in the unfamiliar apartment was the end. And it really could have been avoided. Now I know from doing the work that I do, and now you'll know that the aging mind doesn't adapt to new environments well. If you're in your 30s, 40s, and you move to a new home, you're going to learn that layout. But if you've been in a home for 30 or 40 years and now you're in your 60s, 70s, maybe 80s, your mind is not going to adapt to a new layout very easily or very well. The way your mind works with holding location is actually deep, deep in the brain, and it's pretty automatic. Kind of like when you're driving the car, you don't think about every single step, you just do it because it's something you've been doing for so long. Well, that's true for your home's layout as well and getting around it. So we can only assume he doesn't remember, but we assume that he was doing something and was unfamiliar with the layout and fell. And I really wish he had explored all of his options so that he could have stayed in that home for the long haul. And who knows, maybe he would still be here today, or maybe he'd at least have a peaceful, empowered ending to his life, really just more under his control. So that was my grandfather, and that happened when I was about 17 to 18. And now, cut to my grandmother, a different story there. My grandmother actually owned her home. It was a single level, and she had other retirement assets and Social Security. So she stayed in her home, and she is still living. She is 94. But with my grandmother, it was a different set of aging issues that I would hope to help everyone on this course prevent. And my grandmother really, really lived as meagerly as she possibly could. She was also very independent, so she lived alone, which wasn't very good for keeping her mind engaged and active. So she aged. She actually has Alzheimer's now, and we think that part of the reason was because she just kept herself so isolated. None of us could really help. She just wouldn't let us stay for long, but she is under good care now. But I think her mind would be a lot better if a couple of things had happened. So she was able to stay in her home for pretty much the long haul. She's 94 and she's no longer in that home now, but she was in there until she was 92. So she really did have the ideal, maintaining her independence for as long as possible. But she didn't care for herself because she lived so meagerly and unnecessarily, too. She had resources. She just was so used to saving and saving and saving. She didn't care for herself well. She didn't even get the proper nutrition. And when she finally fell, and my parents and aunts and uncles were able to convince her, okay, it's time to come and live with us now. When that finally happened, she was so malnourished. It was just so sad to see. And she kept trying to keep her own house up. She wouldn't get help coming in, and so the house was a mess, and she was just overwhelmed by it, and there was just no reason. She could have very easily had some help come into the house, keep her independence. They would have made her meals, they would have cleaned the house, and I think she would probably be in a better mental state now, and possibly her too have avoided that fall. There's a lot of things that you're going to learn in this course. Avoiding falls is the name of the game. Biggest thing you can do for your retirement, making sure you maintain your independence and keep your money. Falls are expensive. I'm not going to go into that too, but you may know someone. Falls can be very expensive. But I think she could have been in a better mental state at this point and possibly still living in the home. She didn't want to leave it, but she did make it to 92, which is a pretty good success story. So the point of these two stories is my grandparents have shaped the way that I view myself in this world and my mission. And every single person that I can help age successfully, happily, and avoid these two outcomes is as if I was able to do it for my own grandparents, who, by the way, both were very stubborn. So some of you may not listen to your kids or grandkids, but hopefully through this course, you'll empower yourself with some new information. The main point, too, and I see it with everything I do all day, every day, is a lot of the time, aging isn't something we look to plan for. And if you do plan just a little bit, think about some of these concepts that we're going to go over through this course. You can create the retirement of your dreams and keep your independence for so much longer just by doing a few things and taking some time to look at some of the harder topics. I think if they both had access to the reverse mortgage, because grandma too, she had a paid off house and she just would not touch it. She had more than enough, but she just wouldn't touch it. But grandpa, he needed the money and he wanted to sell. So I think if they had access to the information that we have today, and if the program worked the way it does today, for grandpa, I wasn't doing this back then. I didn't even know about it. And I think it worked quite a bit differently than it does today. So the main point is don't let this be you. Congratulations on being in this course. I hope to empower you with all of the information, all of the client success stories, all of the different professionals that I work with who have granted me access to their brilliant minds and help shape your next 10, 15, 20 years. So let's start with your location. The location where you live. Think about the city, think about the state, think about the exact location of your home. Are you currently comfortable? Are you comfortable with the climate? Sometimes as we get older, there are conditions that make the climate we've been used to not as comfortable as it was in the younger years. Are you close to family and friends and social activities? I'm seeing more and more people moving to wherever their children are as their children are starting to have kids. They want to be close to their grandkids, even if that's not in the same location they've been in. I have lots of clients that move across the country just to be near that brand new baby grandbaby. Do you have hobbies you enjoy? Keeping your mind engaged and active with family, friends, social activities, and hobbies is huge. Are you close to shopping? Are you close to your medical centers and doctors? Are there good transportation options for you? What if you were to have eyesight problems in the future? That's a common thing we will face as we get older. How will you get around? Is there good public transportation? Are you near natural disaster areas that would make it difficult for you to live in 10, 15 years? Are there floods, fires, earthquakes, tornadoes? Maybe just shoveling snow. There are climates where you may not have to do that. Who will change your light bulbs? Again, being close to family and friends, or having the ability to hire a handyman and really establish that relationship. If you can find a handyman that's trustworthy and you establish that relationship in your 60s, as you age, you will already have that go-to person whenever something happens. Or even just a good neighbor. Is there somewhere else you'd really rather be? Maybe it's not necessarily about does it all line up, but are you happy? Would you be happy if you spent your time split? We have a lot of people that have two homes in retirement, and you spend part of your time in one home and part of your time at the other home in a totally different location. Is that part of your retirement goals? If the answer of any of these questions is no, right now is the best time to consider your future needs and make the changes required to ensure that you enjoy many safe years in retirement. I can tell you, you're never going to be younger than you are today. It's never going to get any easier as you get older. So if a change needs to be made, now is the time. How about your home features? Is your home 2 stories? If it is, are there a lot of stairs or one main stairwell? If you or your spouse had a surgery or maybe a long-term mobility problem, what can you do? Now, the things we look for is there a downstairs bedroom or a space where you could put a bed if needed? If it was just a recovery from a surgery and you're going to get better and able to get up and down those stairs, sometimes people will put a bed in the living room or in a den area. But if it's a true long-term mobility issue, can you live like that? Can you maybe put in a stair lift? Some stairwells are too small or there's too many turns where that's just not a possibility. And then others are perfect for it. So you want to evaluate your particular home and not just think about are you comfortable today, but are you comfortable if something could happen? Everyone thinks it's not going to be me, it's not going to be me. Unfortunately, we never know who it's going to be, but sometimes it is us. And having a plan will help make that shock and the adjustment a lot easier. Where will your bed be? Does your bed adjust up and down? Do you have a tubless accessible shower? That's a really uncommon thing to think about, but really necessary as we get older to have either a walk-in tub that you can sit somewhere and shower, or a walk-in stand-up shower where there's no step. You don't want to step because it could create an opportunity to fall. We call those wide zero threshold showers with a bench and a hose and a shower head. It will make showering and cleaning so much easier. If you can address that now and modify your bathroom, what we find is as people get older, if they don't have a shower or bathtub that's easy, they end up stop showering. And that creates all sorts of other hygiene issues. It goes from missing 1 day of a shower to 2 days to 3 days to whole weeks. And you have the opportunity to really make your space perfect so you can age in place and not have any of those issues down the road. Do you have stable grab bars? Now, Stable grab bars are really important. Do not get the suction kind. You will see the suction kind sold, and if you ask around, you will hear some horror stories. They do not suction effectively, always reliably. You want to have an actual certified grab bar installer install them into your bathroom and any other space in your home that you think that might be necessary. Now, I have a couple of friends, husband and wife, and he actually had a cane and she was fine, mobility wise. And he was okay. He had been showering and everything just fine. And so he thought she was crazy when she went to go install the grab bars. He said, "Oh, we don't need to spend money on that. Let's not do that. That's for old people." And she did it anyways. And he was telling me this story about a month after she had it done, and don't you know it, he slipped in the shower and grabbed that bar, and his eyes were as wide as saucers, thinking what would have happened if that bar hadn't been there right when he needed it. So install them before you have your first fall. If you've had a first fall, please install them before you have a second fall. Is your laundry close to your bedroom? That'll make it easier for you transporting big laundry baskets. Do you have pull-out drawers for cupboards and no high shelves? You want to make sure that you're not getting up on the counters or needing a step stool to access all the things you need on a regular basis. As we age, our mobility gets a little bit less. So you don't want to have to be reaching really high up. You don't want to have to be bending over and looking deep into the bottom last cupboard to get things. You want to put night lights from your bed to your bathroom, just a little bit of assistance light wise so that you can safely get to the bathroom in the middle of the night. Furniture placement. Is there a end table or maybe a couch arm or a chair that you have in a location where you regularly hit your leg, or you have to consciously think about getting around it? Now is the time to think about that piece and getting it out of there. You want to make sure you have clear, wide paths for all of your most commonly walked areas throughout your home, from your bedroom to your bathroom, from your living room to your kitchen, from your kitchen to your bedroom. All of those pathways you want to make sure are totally clear, and a toddler could easily walk without any trouble and any fear that they would get hurt. Floor rugs. Floor rugs are a fun one. Floor rugs are responsible for a lot of falls. Is there a particular floor rug in your home that you catch that corner on and just do a little stumble or a little trip, nothing big yet, but you want to think about that rug, and that's the rug that will cause something big in the future. So get it out of there. You want to make sure any rugs that you do have sticky back bottoms so they're not sliding if they're on hard surfaces. Any rugs on carpets that all of the ends lay down easily, or just get rid of them. I love when I enter someone's home who's in their 60s, 70s, and there's just no rugs. While rugs are pretty and decorative, they are a fall hazard. No ladders over the age of 70. Period. That's a rule in my entire family. No ladders over the age of 70. You can do little step stools if you feel comfortable, but if it requires a ladder, hire someone else to do it. There are so many unnecessary falls from ladders over the age of 70 that you can totally be avoided. Again, find that handyman that you are establishing this relationship with. And this may be a good reason to. If you're getting on a ladder to do X, Y, or Z up in your house, think about that and think about hiring that handyman to do it instead. Can you maintain your yard, your garden, your pool, and your land yourself? You can hire people to do those things for you, or at least have the plan in place. If it would be too expensive, if maybe your property is really, really big and you would need to hire someone for every aspect, pool, land, big yard, big garden. If you need to hire someone for every aspect, maybe that's not realistic to stay there. And maybe it is. Maybe you can hire people to handle all of those things for you, or you can still maintain some of them yourself as you age. But consider, is this home too much maintenance for you? Do you want to? Maintenance is a lot of work, and hiring someone can add up. So, is this something you want to do? Is this large of a home with this much land or pool, whatever features your home has? Is it something you actually want to stay in? Are there any big repairs? Again, this is the opportunity to think of any big repairs that maybe they're not immediate now, but in 3, 5 years, they will become immediate. You want to catch those before they cause more damage. The one that I see that most commonly is roof and window leaks. If you can fix that roof or window leak before it actually rains and leaks into the drywall and creates a much bigger hassle and bigger repair, now is the time you want to get that stuff fixed. This is an uncommon one to think about, but do you have a long driveway that would cause a problem for getting trash cans up and down to the curb every single week? I've seen people actually have to move because of the long driveway and it just wasn't sustainable. Or do you have family and friends nearby or a good neighbor who you can ask to do this task for you every week? What tasks do you enjoy doing now and want the end result of, but maybe you can't do yourself? Can you have someone help with these tasks? This is more commonly gardening is the one I see that you really enjoy having the garden and seeing the beautiful flowers. But as you get older, maybe it's just not realistic for you to do all of the gardening. Or maybe now it's fine. But when it does become harder, be aware of that and have your plan in place for who you're going to ask. So the goal with this information is to answer number one, is this the right home for me now? Is it the right home for me for the next 5 years? How about for the next 10 years? And can I stay in this home forever? Do I have plans to address whatever might come up? If the answer to number one is no, a reverse mortgage may still be a good solution, just not on this particular home. Now is the time we should be looking at selling this home and buying a different one that's more suited for your specific needs and future needs. Thanks for attending this module 1. I will see you in module 2.